And so here we are live with Jannik Elkær. Hi, Jannik. Good morning, and thank you for accepting our invitation and joining this new episode of A Cup of Theater.
Good morning, and a cup of coffee here. Sorry.
Yeah. For the occasion, I adapted myself with a Viking cup. Is it a cup with mule?
Yes, for sure. That looks amazing. Very
Great.
nice, Margot.
But
yeah.
I have coffee inside it, so it is kind of a contamination between different cultures.
So you're cheating as well, a little bit.
Exactly, absolutely. I stole from different backgrounds.
Yeah, I drink Italian coffee here. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Great. So maybe in the meanwhile, we give the possibility to the people to just connect to the live streaming. I have little traditions in my conversation to just say something about my guests, and so I read directly from Bora Bora website. That you are a choreographer, a body coach, a teacher, and a performer. You toured all around the world, in the USA, in Peru, in Cuba, in Israel, in Nigeria, and most of Europe. And you are also creator of the concept leadership in movement. Is it correctly translated? Ledelse y Bevægelse.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I was really so curious about this point. Can you just tell me what is it about?
Yeah, it's something I've been working with it for a long time, on and off. And in general, it started when I started to readjust myself. Like I started to study some art and culture management, and then I went into a lot of theoretical leading theories, and then I started to think about, like, as a moving person, I think that often we separate, like, mind and body. Often, like, we have, like, a Descartes. It's like, okay, the body is carrying around the mind, like we're thinking. That's why we are. And I started to get more into, like, why is not that because we are moving, that's why we are thinking. Like, I look at my little son, 6 months, years now, and how he's starting to articulate his hands, the way he connect with things, and also, and for me, I see also how his brain start to develop. And I think, like, sometimes I think, like, actually our thoughts is also it's created by how we move things, how we develop our body language. So I don't, like, I was trying to work into this, that is not separated, that the physicality, that it's like we are doing, that's why we are. And that also define how we're thinking, how our body is actually in the world. So it started to be like that often when you're sitting and talking about things, you want to make a strategy for something, you often sit down and you think, and I think that affects the way you think. So I try to change it into, like, to actually think in a movement perspective. You have to be moving while you're thinking. So that was the basic idea, that it changed what our body is doing is changing how we think in the moment. So I went into that, like, to create a lot of games, a lot of different ways of challenge the body to move, also sometimes in ways that you haven't planned to move and you didn't expect to move, often with an object. For example, you can have a stick, like you move it towards one person and he has to escape. So one other person is creating the pattern of your own movement. So you don't have time to think about how to move. You just have to adapt. And in that, suddenly your brain is changing. It starts to think in a different way. So that's, like, the basic of it. And then I've been using it in the theater work, in the dance work. I used it, but also I've been working with other what do you call it, branches, also other like people who's leading in a let's say in a common normal work, like sitting on a computer or doing leadership for the government or something. So I've been doing workshop with them as well to try to make a bridge between like office working people and actually make them move and make them think in a different way. Because if you want to change something, we have to change how we act, and we have to change our habits, I think.
That's so interesting.
So that's the primal idea of it.
No, of course. Also because I can say that sometimes our mind also influences the way to move our body, but it's sometimes a prejudice, because we have maybe an internal image of our body that maybe in some cases does not correspond exactly to our to how our body would move, to how our body would react. So this kind of approach is actually really interesting when it comes to different sectors, as you said, for example, in office environment, or some in environments that are not used to use the body in such an expressive way as theater or dance or whatever. And how do you connect this practice to your artistic work with Don Gnu? Do you use it to develop some kind of improvisation or as training? How do you connect it?
Yeah, often how we work, we devise the work a lot. So often, like people who's engaged in the project, they are also engaging in creating it. So we are creating like the frames of what we are going to do. And sometimes we, for example, what I said with the stick, it can be a basic way of creating some kind of movement material that is not like, okay, I want to do a certain kind of movement, but I want to see how is your body reacting if it's forced by another, like another force is actually making you move this way. So your body is much faster to adapt than if you are starting to plan it. So and that brings me to the point that you say, like, your mind has another image of your body, but what if the body and the way we think, the mind is actually the same, if it's not separated? Like we have like a tradition in the Western philosophy, like with Descartes, that it is two separated things. What if it's the same? What if like the way we perceive is also the way we think? So it's so that's how I think we try to put it into our work in Don Gnu by putting, like, we are creating material, we are finding a theme, and it can be many different things, but then we try to put it outside to normal common people in normal common situations, to actually see how does it work in real life, how does people interact with it, how do they read it? Because for me, like, abstract movement is a very exciting thing, but for me it's more interesting to actually to build the bridge from normal behavior, or like accepted behavior, to more abstract movement, abstract ideas, and without cutting it in between. And that's what often happens when we are working with art, because we are in a room and we close ourselves in, and then we get separated from the world. So and then we create something that is amazing, but when you put it out, it's not understandable, it's not it doesn't communicate. So for us, it was very important to actually put it out, to move it outside, to move it in a different setting. So it has to so it needs to communicate right away, and we try to do that very early in the process. So it can be after a week or after 3 days, as soon as we have some material that we can actually try to put out there.
Yeah. Actually, I got a lot of connections with, for example, your last production, Walkman. That actually it was the setting was just some white stripes, like the ones you can find in the street, for example, for pedestrians who just come across the street. And as far as I could watch, you also practiced outside during the creation of your show. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I wanted to do it more in that project that we actually managed to do, but we did it outside. And that when we brought it outside, it changed a lot. It changed a lot of all the games and all the reasons why we were doing different things, and it created a whole new game. Also, a lot of interaction, because people are reacting differently. Like when you cross like the pedestrian, like in the light cross, what's it called?
Light cross. Yeah,
light cross. It's like we have different expectations, and we react. Like if one person is crossing for the red light, some people are looking at like, whoa, how
what's going on?
Like, because we are breaking some of the common rules. And also if it gets green and somebody just stay, and like if you're a big group and there's a lot of people behind and one person just stay, even when it's green, people are like, they don't expect it. And then they change the habits of how you react, and then suddenly things are breaking out of normality. And then of course you can put it like we had like somebody, what if you're walking through the pedestrian like a snake? And
would be so interesting to perform it in other contexts, in other cultural contexts. I was thinking, for example, in Italy. We have the opposite problem. So people just need to hurry. They rush all the time, so they just cross the street with a red light. So when we actually see somebody who's waiting for the green light, even though there are no cars, they are just, what's going on? Why are you waiting? The street is clear, so why don't you go? So it's actually very funny, because it can create some cultural gap, very interesting. But were there also I would say common people, so just normal spectators watching you while rehearsing?
Outside?
Yeah, outside. I mean,
a lot of people were stopping and watching, and also we tried in a different. It was actually different. Like the first time we tried to have normal clothes on, so people couldn't see the difference between us and the other people there.
Yeah.
And then we tried to get very close to another person, and like, because we have, like, especially now in Corona times, like we have the 2 meters square, but then we try to. It's not in Denmark at least. People are getting suspicious if you're getting too close to them.
Yeah.
And understandable. We tried that, and then people was reacting in the beginning like, okay, are they trying to pickpocket, like stealing from me? People get so suspicious, and they were like, some got angry about it. And there was a guard from a shop around.
Okay.
He went to us and asked, what are you doing? What are you doing here? Like, and he got really angry, and I told him about it, and he was like, okay. But what do you think? He was like, okay, but be careful. Like, it's not, people are
of course,
afraid of it. But then the next day we tried to have a little bit costume, like black clothes on, and then people was really enjoying it. And then people were standing and looking at it and laughing about it, and the performers also learned to be more what is it called? To be more sensitive. Because you can't start screaming there. People will get afraid. You have to really, again, you have to build the bridge from what they're doing to something get performative. So it's actually about how we change the behavior and push it slowly to another language. And of course, Italy, you have a different body language, so maybe different physicality would be accepted. In Denmark, we have a little bit more restricted body language, so it's not so, we don't have to go so far before it's different.
But actually, because of the situation, well, I don't think the nature of the people, the cultural nature of people would change so much. But actually, there are some behaviors that are going to that are going to change radically because of this situation. Because I heard from many friends in Italy that actually now it is allowed to go out in the streets to just gather together. Yes, we were talking about how difficult it is to just mix different languages, because since I've started learning Danish, I just forgot some English expressions. So this morning I said to my girlfriend that please let's speak in English, because I need to get started again. And it was our little daughter who was looking at us. What the hell is going on? Because we talk in Italian at home, so it was just strange. But just coming back to what I was saying, there are actually some people that, even though they are allowed now to go out, they actually don't feel that comfortable to go out, because in Italy we used to hug together, to kiss together, to keep very close physical contact. But when you get outside, you have to wear masks. You have to just keep the distance. And if you just hug with a friend you have not been seeing for such a long time, the other in the street would look at you. Oh my God, what are you doing? Are you crazy or what? So they just feel more comfortable staying at home and inviting their own friends, maybe for a dinner or for a cup of coffee or whatever. And in their homes, they feel more comfortable to just be themselves. So actually, this crisis is changing kind of radically our cultural behavior in this kind of situation. So yeah, it will be really interesting also to explore this new reality that it is creating, a new cultural environment in some places.
Yeah. But do you think it would change? Like, I know now it's still like, I know for Italy it has been much more rough than in Denmark. So of course it has a much stronger impact there. I know here it's in Denmark, people are also allowed to get out. We don't wear a mask. People, I think, are that trying to keep distance, but you have groups that is close together. Like you can be a group of 10 people close together.
Yeah,
and they're doing that. It's starting to be summer now, so people are outside.
Yeah.
So we are still waiting to see what's happening now. If it gets back to normal, like I don't know if we like. It depends how things change. If we will stay in this situation, I think if the virus go away, we will, of course, I think we will very fast go back to how
normality.
We were before. You can call normality, but we will go back to how we acted before.
Yeah.
And I hope that we will take some of the good things, like more awareness. I think what it created in the beginning, like you got more awareness of other people on the street. Like you were actually not just focusing for your own thing, but actually more respect for everybody in a public space.
Of course.
And I think in Denmark, at least, I would love that we were more aware of each other. Like in general, gave more space. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting to hear. But how do you think the Danish theater environment would adapt to this kind of situations? Because of course we don't know how the situation will develop in the future. We don't know how the virus will develop itself or so on. We don't know how and when we will be allowed to come back to normality and whatever. But there are a lot of speculations, a lot of things that are being said in this period within the global theater community. How can we adapt? How can we just keep the spectators come to see our shows and whatever? What do you think it will happen, or at least from your perspective, from Don Gnu perspective, how do you how are you imagining to adapt in a new situation?
First of like we have we made one like Corona video that was about the topic, about not touching each other and cleaning hands, but in a funny way, and then still dancing together.
Kurumba is
Kurumba, yeah. And then now we did like a Walkman for Copenhagen stage, and we did it like an outdoor version with a so it was live streaming and filming it, and we started to because I saw a lot of live streaming, and I have difficulties to actually see theaters being just live streamed as a performance. I think for me, I love the live part of it, and I love to be there physically.
As everybody who do
exactly,
it, I think.
Yeah, of course. This is what it is. Like, this is what why we are doing it. Why we are not only doing movies, because there is something like real. There's live. There's something it can go wrong. I like that it's possible to make mistakes. But we were working with we tried to choreograph the camera inside the piece, so he's following, so he's getting close, because this, I think, is actually the quality of filming, that you can get close to a person, that you can really see like more emotion, like because when you are in a big stage, sometimes you need only to see like the visual big movements. If you're sitting far behind, you can't you can't follow the face expression.
Yeah, you can't get the tiniest expressions, the tiniest movements of the face, for example. Yeah, that's true. That's totally true.
So for us, like, it's a good challenge to actually bring camera. We have been working with film a lot, but this pushed us to work more with filming, but also to try to make the filming a living part of the action of the play. So they are actually choreographed as well. They are on the stage, has to move around, follow close, and then move around. So you see this perspective. So this gets a part of actually the physical movement. So the camera has to move as well. And I think for the long term, we will try to, if we get back to normality, we will try to add this element definitely in our performances in the future. So we see like a film man on the stage, close to the end, and moving together. So it's a part of it. So you see it live, but you can also see like the projections of the close interactions. Yeah. So I think we will work with that. And then I think there will come a lot of new ideas to how to actually. I don't know. I don't know
of
yet.
Course.
but if we are not allowed to, like, I know the theaters are allowed to open, but they have to create like a space in between them here. So you can, so it's less audience. I don't know if that makes the shows more expensive, or maybe there will be like a live stream part of it, while like they're also sitting, like the camera will be much more integrated in the theater productions. But I think we will get back to some kind of normality. Like, we will get back to being able to sit in the theater together, and that's also like our next production is starting in August. Tourist.
Oh yeah, I read about it.
Yeah, and Tourist, like, we can't travel now, but that's it's a new perspective. So that's I love when you get like what's it called, an obstruction. Because for me, this is like an obstacle. Like, Tourist, like, was meant to be like where we have to go out, like, really play with the tourist. But now you can't. You, as a tourist, you can't travel. You have to travel at home. So that's a funny idea to explore and to see what's happening when you are stopped in moving somewhere, or you're blocked to go somewhere. Often that's where we get creative, I think, to when we have to find another way around.
Are you going to?
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Sorry, are you going to use the camera as well in your new production?
We're gonna use projections for sure, and we are thinking about adding the film guy into it, but we have to see how we're gonna do it.
Yeah, of course.
And if it's gonna stay there, or if it's the performers who actually use the camera in a different way, or to get this closeness, to get this ability to actually see, to get like the visual, like the big picture, but in the same time getting really narrow into small details. And even though that it's a big stage, so we're going to work with that, and we're going to work with it as if we are able to do a stage performance.
Yeah.
So we are planning to do that. Yeah. So we will not change radically what we are doing, but we will adapt, and we will try to, like, because things are changing also, like it's changing so fast. So we will in the moment work with the obstacles that will be there. And that's often a gift for us, that something has to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have a question that is of course difficult to answer, because it is very personal, depending person to person and companies to companies. But I was curious, where does DONGNU's creative process start? Because, well, I must say that I took it for granted because I didn't say it in the presentation, but actually you are the co-artistic director of DONGNU's company, which is one of the most important and touring Danish companies in Denmark. So where does your creative process start while creating a new show?
Often it starts in between me and my colleagues. My colleague Christopher is the other part of Christopher Louis Andrup Pedersen, long name, is the other part of the company. And then we work with Christopher Bregne, he's the film guy. Often the three of us has some collaboration, and then we have like our administration and the PR. It's also it's really a strong triangle, but also in the PR, and it's Malene and Katrine as the administrator. We try to have the whole organization to be a part of the idea from the beginning. So often, like, maybe I present an idea or some of the other, and then we put it in this ball of a lot of ideas, and we have a lot of different shows that we want to do. And then we are discussing them, and we are talking about which one is interesting and how we want to develop it. And then I'm often sitting and writing a lot on it. Like, I'm not writing I'm not writing like a script. I'm writing more concept, and then we are talking about the concept, and then we are talking. Often scenography is a big part of it, so we are inviting different scenographers to develop the stage, the scenography, because often the object is like a physical thing that can communicate what's happening between people. So often we put an object, and how can we move that, and how can we move that in a different way than it's normally moved, and what does that tell about the people's relationship? I think in general it's about human in interaction is what we're looking for, and we are of course looking for, we are using our own, like, it has to be something rooted in ourselves that we want to explore. And then we have maybe we have like a bad habit or something, and then we are like making it bigger just because it's funny to explore one side of yourself that you maybe don't like, or something that you just put it on stage, and another part you put that, and what's happening when you put the extreme of that, what's happening physically, how does the other person has to react to that. And that for me creates and then we start to play around that and create a game. So often we don't choreograph like movement have to be like duck 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 duck, but the rules are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So you start to move the same way, but it's the rules who is defining the choreography. So if one person is doing something a little bit different, the other person has to adapt. So they are like depending on each other all the time. So we try. It's like a tango, kind of. Tango is very like the tango language is a very. This is what we actually the way we got into movement, both me and Christopher.
Okay, that's interesting.
So that's a basic like that's of course you have like one leading and one following, but tango can also be two leading and following at the same time. Yeah, and you have to actually lead. You have to understand to follow. So that's and then like this is the closeness, but then you can pull it apart. Yeah. So I think it's a lot about that. It's about moving around something without saying exactly what it is.
Okay.
So yeah. So it always has to be. You always have to explore it in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. That's interesting because while dancing tango, you don't have the tango shoes, but you have sandals with socks. It is kind of your
trademark,
kind of a symbol of yours in some way, as far as I could understand. How was it born, this thing of sandals with socks?
Yeah, that was the first show we called Men in Sandals, and it's born. First of all, socks and sandals is we all know what it is, and we all have a lot of ideas of if it's cool or not. But then at the same time, it's also how you say, it has a lot of humor for us in it, and humor is a very important aspect of what we're doing. It's an easy way to get to talk with people, to open up and to make people feeling comfortable in the situation, and then you can start to talk about more serious topics. But
of course,
it's nice, and it's very maybe I don't know if it's especially Danish, but Danish we have like this a lot of irony and playing around with that and self-irony and socks and sandals is a kind of like we started to explore like the man, because we were still like, okay, we are men, but what kind of men are we? And it was like 10 years ago, I think 10 years ago we started with that. And there was like a big wave of like, okay, you have to be a real man, you have to really find yourself, you have to go out to the nature and do stuff. And we made a little bit fun of it, because also like I am the same, like I want to be a man, but at the same time I'm also like, what the fuck is that? So also allowing yourself to be a little bit ridiculous, to be able to actually kill the expectations of what you should be, so you can actually explore yourself in different ways. And for us, socks and sandals was like, okay, we are cutting to the bone, but not totally, we still have socks in the sandals. We don't go totally naked. We still have the socks. It's like safety net.
That's so funny.
And then it's a clear image, and people can relate to it very fast, and it takes the over seriousness out of things, I think.
Yeah. For example, as in Italy, we have a totally clear image of sandals with socks, because for us, sandals with socks is the symbol of the Nordic tourist coming to Italy. So for us, it's just a so clear image. So it was so funny.
But did you realize that they actually had in, I don't know if it was last year, they had like in Milano in the fashion.
Okay.
Some of them are actually wearing socks and sandals now. It became in fashion.
Really? No, I didn't know about it.
Yeah, it's true.
It's
true. They had it. Of course, more fancy socks and
of course.
Yeah. But it was on the podium.
Yeah, I can understand the how can I say it, the fashion of the dark side, of course, with bunny ears of the fashion. But yeah, so nice. Why? Maybe this how can I say it? Maybe it is kind of a banal question, but how was Don Gnu's name born? Why Don Gnu?
Yeah, why Don Gnu? Don Gnu is like the meaning of it is like it's Don is an individual, and Gnu is the group animal, like the so
Gnu,
it's like
yeah.
yeah. So it's and the Gnu is always it's running. It's never stopping. Like if it has to cross a river and there's a crocodile, they just run, and then the other Gnus is just pushing. So if it can't get up on the hill on the other side, it's just pushing.
Yeah.
So it's just like it never stops. It runs around in this big group. And Don is like the single person. It's like the individual, like clean, not smelling as bad as the Gnu. So Don Gnu is like the oxymoron. It's like the individual and the group together. It's like the base. Like so, it has to be space for individual ways, but it has to communicate in a group setting. And then when we started the company 10 years ago, we were touring. Me and Christopher was dancing together with a choreographer called Palle Granhøj. We were touring with him for 5 years, I think, and we were like touring many places. And we always, in the beginning, to warm up, we got bored of warming up, so we start to make games and small phrases of choreography, and then we added one of them to one of the choreography, and Palle, he liked it, and then it grew, and then we figured out that okay, we are playing very well together. Like it's fun to play together. So that's why it started from a play, from a need to move together, actually, from sharing, not like intellectual the same idea, but movement wise sharing the same idea. It was not talked out loud. It was just like in the movement. It makes sense. We had the same kind of humor, the same kind of references to movement, and so then the game started to create around that. Christopher, my colleague, had a company called Project Gnu before, like, and then we said, okay, let's do it together. Okay, what could the name be? And we talked, and then okay, we are two persons, like Don Gnu. It became like that in the end, and then we made those two characters out of that, the Don and the Gnu. Yeah. So this is like for Men and Sandals, and this for me and Christopher when we are on stage, this is like the character name, Don and Gnu.
Yeah.
And this is also like the interaction between them.
Yeah.
One, it's classical. Yeah. One is always deciding, and the other one's like playing, and when he doesn't look, he's like making fun of him behind his back, and like very, very classic slapstick clowning.
Yeah, but I think in your case, this name just gives a very vivid image of also your style of performances, because there is a very strong physical element, but also a strong irony in it. So I think now that you explained it to me, I had the perfect image of this contrast between the two images, the people, the person alone, and all this group gathering and pushing. So it is very, very effective as image. And time is running. I have actually one question that is allow me just to step a little bit outside of the artistic topic, which is very interesting. I could just keep talking about it for hours and hours, but I was also interested in hearing from you a perspective about the social and the political situation within theater and the theater environment, the performing arts environment in Denmark. How, of course, this crisis has put the performing arts sector in front of very in a very difficult situation. Of course, it can be better or worse depending on the country. For example, we should not talk about the differences between Denmark and Italy because they are really uncountable. But apart from that, how is the Danish government dealing with the performing arts sector's difficulties? Which how is dealing with it? In your opinion?
I think they're trying to deal with it. They realized it's more complicated than they expected. Maybe like
because I heard, for example, a lot of people. Sorry, because I heard, for example, a lot of people in Denmark just complaining about the cultural minister who said this is not time to talk about culture. So for many artists in Denmark, it was really disappointing. So what is your opinion about it?
Yeah, I think like the positive part of it, that it's now more out in the open how the art environment actually how it looks like, and like much more complicated. You cannot just put it into a fixed frame like that. And that's also what I think art should be. It should be more chaotic in a way. But then when we talk money wise, it's like it's difficult. You see it was difficult, and of course I think it's a wrong choice to say like we can't talk about art now. But then she changed her mind. Like she like also the other part in the government was starting to push for solutions for the art. Of course, some of the art groups could come under the umbrella of the companies around. Like they could be supported in the same way, but many could not. Like because they have a different structure of support and how much they're earning themselves. So it's complicated, and also like the mix of income. Like I think at least it's not the perfect. I think it's not a perfect solution yet, for sure not. They're working for it, and they found a lot of solutions. For example, for the touring theaters, like because in the beginning they were like afraid of like we didn't got anything, like you just canceled all the shows.
Yeah,
and of course like you had a lot of obligations to your employees as a touring company, and then if you just cancel the show and can't get any refund of, if you just it's force majeure, okay, you don't get any money. It's like it's like death for the company. But now they made this solution that there's some kind of supporting systems. You have like I don't know the English word for that. From midlings, there's different supporting systems for when a theater or a theater forening, it's called in Denmark. When they buy a show, they get some kind of funding from the government. So because the theater show is more expensive than you can actually you can't get enough fund for the ticket sale. They can't pay. They can't pay for the. It's just more expensive to tour a theater piece than how many audience you can get in small cities. And if you want to get art out in all parts of Denmark at least, then you need to support it.
Yeah.
And you get some kind of funding. You get I don't know exactly what it is, but there's one support that the theater forening gets one amount of money, and it's like a ticket reducement. So they can, for each ticket the sale, they get some kind of percentage. So they can make this it's cheaper ticket for young people and etc. Okay. And then there's different organization like tournée organization who pay like for the first show they pay I don't know like 16,000 kroner or something, and you also have a guarantee solution ordning, and it's like the same amount of money they pay for the performance, so they can get a lot of the money refunded. of course now there have been a huge discussion about those money, but now we got into that agreement that the touring company will get 75% of those money.
Yeah.
So that's, I think it's not, they will still lose money, but they can survive on that, I think. So that is positive for sure. But then you have all the international perspective. I don't, because there's different rules. So it just shows that it's a complicated area. That, and it's on, like, it has the own ministry, like it has the culture ministry who's dealing with that. And I think that Joy Mogensen, the art minister, she was trying to put the art into the finance minister, like, and you just see it's not possible because they're not as how they are building the rules there. It's like, because it's so, it, like, the artists are combining income in so many ways. So it is, of course, I think they're doing a good, I think they're doing a good job. I think they're working hard for it. Like, but it is a difficult, and I know it's a difficult area, and I don't think I'm the right person to really to say what is the perfect way of doing it. For sure, it has to be, it has to develop. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, but yeah. And I don't know, because what it's easy just to complain about it. And I think it is because there is so many interests in it, and it's tax money, and it's really a fine line of how those money is is moved around, and now how the structure is now for the accounts. Like, as you said, I'm in the representative for choosing who has to sit in the groups, who has to give out the funding for the project.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like, you call it this, the arm length principle, and then you can say, yeah, of course, then it's artists giving out money to artists, so it can very easily become nepotistic. I don't know the English word for that. But the other solution is that, okay, then it's politicians who has to give, and then it gets political, like, and it's a long discussion. And
and what's worse? Is it worse that artists give money to artists, or politicians that give money to artists? That's a complex discussion to do. Yeah,
I think it is. And I don't want to come with that. I don't want to give the solution here. But I think we should definitely talk about it. Definitely being more, like, try to clarify it, how to make it's a structure who's there, and it's working to a certain level, and then of course, like, it doesn't fulfill all expectations, and it has really but because who's stronger in the environment would it also affect, like, for example, I'm sitting for the dance, and then I'm sitting with 8 other persons who has to in the other kind of the other genres in the stage.
Yeah, in the other sectors of performing arts, and
then, for example, from the working grant, we have 2 people to put in, and then the government, like the minister, put the last one in. So imagine 8 people from different genres have to choose 2 people to put in.
Yeah,
it has to be a very broad person. Like, the persons who's getting has to. You cannot put a person who's very narrow into one thing. It has to be people who's in touch with many things.
Who has vision, a global vision.
No, but also have been, like, if they're working, they have to be working in different layers of the stage. They have to be in contact. They have to have knowledge. They cannot be, like, specific on one thing.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge, and I don't know if it would be better if there was more people sitting in those deciding committees, so they really have one person from each sector, so they really have to discuss and know about the topic. But that would be more expensive because they have to be paid as well from the art council. So it's always like, so there's less money for the art if there's more people have to sit and do the deciding period.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, it's totally understandable.
And then, like, of course, they have been cutting a lot for the art in the last year, so it's they're not gaining money. And I think we should I think art is really connecting people. It's very important for society. You see it also places where you call it the outskirts in Denmark. Like, they have to concentrate on having art because this is why people want to live somewhere, because there's something happening, there's something connecting, there's something that an art is a different mindset. It's a different way of connecting with each other. That's not only based on productivity and to make money. It's a way to look at the world in a different way and sharing experiences in a different way. So I think it's important to make us grow and to create meaning in our life.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But we agree on that, of course.
That's a one-way conversation, this one, but that's also important that our people to make this kind of conversation. Jannik, it's 11 o'clock. I just thank you so much for being here with me and holding this conversation. It was such a pleasure and such an interesting conversation to talk with you. And thank you also to all the people who joined us. And I wish you all the best in your day. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Have a good day. Enjoy the sun.